Should I start? Bueno, I finished. Que no he hecho broma. Estoy muy nervioso que... Okay. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to our house, MUBIL Center. So thank you for taking your time and making the effort to be here. So we put a lot of care and a lot of effort trying to make a very interesting journey. So I hope, hopefully, you enjoy it. So here we are today for a common goal, to understand and to improve the mobility across Gipuzkoa, always taking into account three different aspects. The first one is to keep the character of Gipuzkoa. Gipuzkoa is a treasure, and we need to keep it for the next generations. Second, unfortunately, the CO2 emissions are increasing regarding the mobility, not only in Gipuzkoa, but also in Gipuzkoa. And the third is to promote economic activity through this project. So, and also I would like to highlight that this project wouldn't be possible to do it without the help of MUBIL and all the knowledge that is creating around MUBIL Center. So, alone, we can go fastest, but together, we can go farther. It's not any ambitious goal that could be achieved alone. So here, we put together different stakeholders, different departments of the Gipuzkoa government, MUBIL, MIT, Tecnun, and other agents. So the beginning was not easy, because we had to overcome different barriers, such as distance, culture, visions, but we worked together, and today, we are proud to show you the results of the project. So for the day, we're going to start with the opening, with the institutional welcome with Unai Andueza, President of MUBIL, Deputy of Economical Promotion and Strategic Project of the Gipuzkoa Council. Then after Unai, it's going to be a talk from MIT. Luis Alonso and Ken Larson, they will give us the perspective of MIT and the City Media Lab. So after that, two other City Science Labs will explain us their project, their results from Hamburg and from Andorra. Thank you very much for also being here. And of course, Zuriñe Varela, the Scientific Director of City Science Lab Gipuzkoa, will explain the project. After the coffee break, we are going to have different lightning talks about the research and activities around mobility, and then it's going to be the lunchtime. During the lunchtime, we are going to do two things at the same time. One is to eat lunch, and the other thing is to see the demo space. So be aware of the color of your budget, because we organize everything through those colors. So please keep in mind this issue regarding the last time. And after that, we are going to have a workshop that is called Aran es Aran, that is from valley to valley. So with that, we are going to start with the day. So please, Unai Andueza, the floor is yours. A big clap for Unai Andueza. Thank you very much.
Lehenik eta baina egunon guztioi, egunon, ikerlari guztiok, egunon lagunok, Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to welcome all you to Donostia, to San Sebastian, and to this MUBIL Center today on such a meaningful occasion for Gipuzkoa. Really, we are proud to present this big milestone in our ongoing journey toward smart, sustainable, and inclusive mobility, the launch of the City Science Lab of Gipuzkoa. Since its inauguration, MUBIL has led an ambitious agenda focused on innovation, collaboration, and leadership, mainly, of course, in the field of intelligent mobility. Today, we take another significant step on this path. This initiative, already Igor has talked about this and has said this, this initiative is developed together with the MIT Media Lab, Tecnun, University of Navarra, and of course, MUBIL. And it's more than just a technological advance. It represents a strategic vision for our territory. Through the City Science Lab Gipuzkoa, we are embracing a new way of understanding and planning our urban and regional spaces. By advanced data, visual tools, and simulation models, we are making it possible to rethink how people move, how services are accessed, and how our communities are connected. At the heart of this project lies the concept of Gipuzkoa as a 30-minute region, a vision where every person, no matter where they live, can reach essential services, schools, hospitals, jobs within a short, sustainable, and accessible travel time. This vision rests on three core principles. The first one, reducing CO2 emissions and combating climate change. Second, promoting territorial cohesion and social equity. And third, promoting economic dynamism by supporting private innovation around sustainable mobility. The interactive digital dashboard we are introducing today offers a powerful, intuitive platform that helps us make data-driven decisions. It allows us to visualize access times to services across 4 transport modes: walking, driving, moving or traveling by public transport, but also by cycling. But even more important, it allows us to simulate the future, to test, to design better policies that respond to the real needs of our people. This laboratory is not just a local achievement. It's a signal of how Gipuzkoa is positioning itself on the international stage as a forward-thinking territory, ready to embrace the challenges of the 21st century with determination and creativity. Let me close by thanking everyone who made this project possible, the team at MUBIL, the researchers from MIT, and Tecnun University, and 2 other partners also. Your work shows that innovation and collaboration are not just words. They are the foundation of a smarter, more inclusive, and more sustainable Gipuzkoa. Eskerrik asko guztioi, thanks very much.
Welcome everybody, I'm Zurine Varela. It's a pleasure to have all of you today. Placer bat da, gaur zuek hemen ikustea, eskerrik asko etortzagatik. Today's first presentation will be from Kent Larson. It's an honor to have him here. Kent Larson is a professor at the MIT Media Lab, where he directs the City Science Center, a team of interdisciplinary researchers and scientists focused on developing urban interventions that enable more entrepreneurial, livable, high-performance communities. He's also the leader of the City Science Network. The network, which we are part of, now includes more than 10 international nodes and is in its 10th year of operation. Today, Kent joins us to share his vision of the city science process. Welcome, Kent.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Maria and I arrived Friday, and we've had an opportunity to spend a number of days here walking all over the city. We kind of stayed away from the old town and the beach area. We liked going into the neighborhoods and seeing how the local people live, and it's just an extraordinary place. It's just filled with children playing and young parents and young adults having fun in the bars and older people who are out for their walk. I mean, it just feels like a very special place. So thank you for inviting us here. We're thrilled to be here. What I'd like to do is talk about. Can somebody help me with this remote? Okay, there it goes. Talk about our process. If you enter our lab, you'll see a lot of these big cityscope physical models. We have models of the various projects that we're engaged with around the world. This project in Chile right here in the foreground. And on these big monitors, you'll see the various projects that we work on, themes, mobility, transformable environments, et cetera. But what I would like to focus on today is the process that we engage in. And we have these 5 components for every project. We don't necessarily do them in this order. It's more of an iterative process, but we start with insight. That's how are things today? We use a lot of data analytics, telecom data, other data, surveys, to understand what are the current social and economic and environmental conditions. Okay. That alone doesn't get you anything, though. Then you have to think about how you improve those conditions. Transformation. And there are lots of ideas out there. Urban planning, mobility, housing, energy, food production, manufacturing, et cetera. But we identify these and the innovations that we think can improve on the conditions. Then prediction. All right, so you understand what things are today, you have ideas to transform it, then you have to predict their impact, their social impact, environmental impact, their costs, how much time might it take to deploy these. So these are prediction models, and this is an agent-based model that we're showing here on the screen. But then those 3 are not enough. We have to move to the next phase, which is consensus. You need to bring together the community and the government officials and the corporate leaders and reach a consensus about a shared vision of the future. And this is really complex. So these models that we build are designed to be engagement tools to help groups of particularly lay people make decisions. And you'll see some of this down in the demo. And then finally, it's governance. Boy, this remote is not great.
Let's see this one. Oops.
Governance, okay. What are the mechanisms, though, that will actually trigger that kind of transformation? So this is our process. I'm going to spend a little more time on this. Luis, this is not working much better here. All right. Let's talk about insight. Let me try that other one. The other one seemed to be working better.
Let's see. I think they are changing the...
Okay. All right. No problem. So this is an example of a project in Andorra from many years ago. We had 3 years of telecom data from Andorra Telecom, and we use this to so you can see it's just totally complex. These are the communications with the cell towers, but then how can you make sense out of that? So we can use that to discover in this case, where's the traffic congestion? So we can get this from data, or more interesting for us, where is the activity right there? When there are events, like you can see this is during Cirque du Soleil and Tour de France, things like that. Anyway, we use all these tools to try to understand what the conditions are. There's nothing about improving the conditions. We then can use things like this radar plot boy, this is painful, sorry. Okay. You can see this is very complex, but you can see here that little spike there, that shows there's high unemployment density in Kendall Square where we work, but there's very low residential density. You see that? There's very low residential diversity. There's very few apartments that are affordable for young people, for example. And third place is, unlike San Sebastian, third place is cafes and restaurants just disappear at night. Anyway, this is just one way of understanding current conditions. Transformation. I just picked a couple of projects that have a direct connection to the Basque area. This is the city car project that we did about, started this in 2003, amazing. And so this was a really interesting project in that it had robot wheels. Every wheel was independently controlled. It was drive-by-wire. We wanted to solve the problem of urban parking, so it would fold up. You could get 3 of these in one parking space. The front door opened so you could step directly out on the curb. You could pack the cars closer together because you didn't have any side doors. And people thought we were crazy for proposing this. And then we, right here in the Basque region, actually in Vitoria, we prototyped the robot wheels, the battery arrays, the folding chassis, the body, and we tested this on the streets in Vitoria. And then licensed it to a company here in the Basque region. They failed. That was not a successful venture, but the ideas were good, right? And we don't get involved in the commercialization. That was a separate process. And when we finished this, I realized this was actually an old idea because the future was autonomy. And so we built an autonomous vehicle testing array, and we were realizing at that time that autonomous vehicles had to communicate with humans. So in this case, the vehicle would make eye contact and it would signal to you when it was safe to walk in front of you. In other words, this is a human-machine interface, but it's actually a robot-machine interface. And that was kind of an interesting project for us. And then I realized, well, we needed to even get smaller because cars are really a problem in high-density cities. So let's shrink it down even more. So we did a little 3-wheel vehicle that was like bike share that would expand the number of people that could have access to bike share. And then we thought, well, let's push it even farther because autonomy is getting less expensive. So let's build a lightweight autonomous vehicle that you call like an Uber and it can come to you, but this should be like a good citizen in the community. It should not be threatening and intimidating to people. And then we said, well, let's even push it farther. Let's make that same lightweight vehicle move people and packages at the same time. Off-peak, it can move packages, and we've modeled that. Noroa here has done an amazing job of building those models. And here you see, this was a full-scale prototype. You call for it, it comes to you wherever you are, and then you drive it to your destination. Autonomy is used for automated rebalancing and pickup, and you see the condition box on the back can be used for food deliveries. And then when Noroa arrived in our lab, I said, well, let's push it even farther. Let's make a bicycle that's autonomous. Oh, by the way, sorry, this is the newest version of this in Taipei, in our Taipei lab. So here's Noroa from Technoon riding on her bicycle, but then when she gets to her destination, the rear wheels unfold and it turns into a bicycle and off it goes. And so that was kind of fun. So now, housing. This is another Basque connection with housing. So here is a really early prototype we did, 2010. This was the first year the iPad came out. So we decided to make a design interface with an iPad. So here people can customize their apartment, moving these furniture elements around, and in this case, this balcony extension. This was a mass customization process for housing. But and it was pretty interesting, but too complex. So I said, let's try a different approach. Let's make a single apartment that can have many different functions. Well, can you back up? I'm sorry, this remote is really annoying. All right, play this. No, next one. Right. So this was our 19 square meter city home. It had a queen-size bed, an office, a dining room for 6 people. This was all led by Asier Lorea, also from Technoon, who's now the CEO of the company that we spun off. So here you see the living room. It had a tiny little bathroom that opened up, so a walk-in shower. And you can see here that the walls are transformable. The kitchen expands, etc. And all of these systems worked, and then the students had a party. There's Asier when he was still my graduate student. And then, again, people thought we were kind of crazy proposing these transformable apartments. But the interesting thing was it's not a single floor plan, it's 6 floor plans that you can dynamically switch from one to the other. We launched a company, Asier is now the CEO, and we've raised money from IKEA and from Google and some big developers, and this is now an apartment that we have in New York City, in Hudson Yards. The bed drops down from the ceiling, the walls open up for an office on demand. So basically you can get double the functionality in the same space. You can basically double the density in an urban area, get twice as many people in the same area with greater functionality. We're now in 1,600 apartments in 100 buildings in 60 cities around the US, and I think this is an important aspect of solving the housing crisis, particularly in high-density cities. And we're looking at now more complete solutions, a mass customization, modular approach with cross-laminated timber. This is a study for a project with Marriott to reinvent the hotel room. This can be used to help elderly people. So she's in a wheelchair, she needs wide spaces, low cabinets. Maybe your husband has a bad back. He needs high counters and narrow spaces, so if he loses balance, he can grab onto surfaces. So lots of applications for this. Prediction. Go through this very quickly. This is 2.5 tons of CO2 per person. This is the yearly carbon budget, average carbon budget for everybody on the planet if we have an 80% chance of limiting global warming to 2 degrees centigrade. But the problem is cities are way, way higher than this. Kendall Square, which is one of the better performing cities in the US, in Cambridge, is 17.19, we estimate. We need to reduce that by 7x, 7 times. Is that even possible? So we built a model. This is now modeling the social and the environmental and the economic impact of all of these interventions and trying to predict their performance. And then we said, well, let's look at an extreme case. Let's just make everything as maximum as possible as a reality check, even if politically it was completely unrealistic. So we started by decarbonizing the grid. That saved a little bit, a little less than 1 ton. Then we looked at hybrid work or 100% electric vehicles. We looked at complete retrofit of buildings, new high performance HVAC and facades. We then looked at putting housing in sync with the jobs so people had walkable access to jobs. By the way, that was by far the greatest impact. Mobility innovation, building innovation was far less impactful than just putting housing near where jobs are and reducing commuting. Access to amenities, that had another great impact. We looked at high efficient housing like we talked about, and lightweight mobility and plant-based diet. So is this politically feasible? We said, let's look, what would happen if everyone in this area ate no meat? Everybody ate plants. Turns out that was just about as impactful as 100% electric vehicles. And I'm not saying any of this is realistic, but this is a reality check, right? High density power, like small modular nuclear, ultimately fusion to create fusion-ready cities. So these are the kind of things we were looking at. And we also looked at decarbonizing air travel and the internet, et cetera. But it turns out that the greatest impact are these things happening at the community scale, and at the community scale, the greatest impact was just putting housing near where the jobs are and local amenities. So that's where you have the win-win-win, social, economic, and environmental. And then, remember, we're talking about prediction. Then we can build these very detailed human dynamic simulation models, these agent-based models. In this case, this is a vertical community. You see people moving in the elevators and people of different profiles of different colors. Let me talk about consensus, because all of those interventions at a maximum would be very challenging to reach a consensus on in a community. But that's critical, that people agree on that shared use of the future. So we build these cityscope models that allow people to explore different futures. And I'll just give you a quick example. Boston Bus Rapid Transit System. Since we are primarily focused on mobility, I'll use this as an example. Boston was proposing new rapid transit bus lines through the city. So we built three models: a regional scale, community scale, street scale. And we worked with people in the community. In this case, she could identify where she lived, where she worked, and how these different options for the bus lines would change her commuting time. And then at the community scale, the neighborhood scale, where are the possible station locations, and how would that impact the performance? Or the street scale, is it the gold standard with the station in the center? Do we eliminate parallel parking? Do we add bus lines? These were all the interventions that were explored. And as people looked at these options, the data would all update and the simulation models would update. So this is consensus, but it brought together insight, transformation, prediction in a consensus package. And you can see how this gentleman, for example, was a member of the community, and we trained him to lead these sessions. So it was quite an interesting community engagement process. In Hamburg, we worked with the mayor on a project related to the refugees coming into the community. They were looking at 70 or 80,000 refugees coming into Hamburg. They needed to find sites to build housing. They were living in these temporary shelters. It was actually pretty grim. So the mayor challenged us to develop a platform to help the communities identify sites to build housing for the refugees. We did 40 some odd workshops with about 30 people each. They could move these optically tagged Lego bricks around and get feedback as to access to jobs and housing and mass transit and the like, and then they would all come back and discuss it. So it was a way of bringing the community together to make decisions. This is the mayor we worked with, Olaf Scholz, that went on to become chancellor, and he emphasized how this was highly effective in helping the community reach a consensus. Article in The Atlantic referred to this pro-refugee urban planning experiment, but it wasn't really urban planning, it was a consensus building experiment. And then the last thing I'll mention briefly is governance. So you can understand current conditions with data analytics. You can have lots of good ideas to improve it. You can build these prediction models to try to understand what the impact is. You can have platforms that help the community agree on their future, but you still need to have mechanisms to transform the community, and that's really governance. That's why it's so critical that we work with people in government that have that are open to new, more enlightened approaches to urban transformation. So urban areas are key to addressing global warming. I know there's a lot of interest here. 70% of global emissions from cities, 90% of the wealth creation, population growth will be in cities. And with federal leadership, particularly in the US, retreating from these issues, it's really critical that city leaders step up and address these grand challenges. Now, the primary concerns of mayors is not really carbon emissions. We're finding it's housing affordability, traffic congestion, economic development. But if you can reduce emissions while also improving these conditions that people care about, then I think we can make progress. Now, how do we do that? I think it's through zoning and land use regulations. Zoning has become the operating system of cities. It basically determines where people can live, where they can work, where they can shop, learn, how they move between the places, and auto-centric, low density of restrictive zoning, I think, is the primary cause, I think everybody agrees, is the primary cause of greenhouse gas emissions in the US. Now, Gipuzkoa is much better. You tend to concentrate development in higher density nodes, you preserve the environment. So in many ways, I think this area is a model for the future, but it can be much better. There's so many things that can be done here, even in Gipuzkoa. We've come to realize that creating these new rules that can govern settlement patterns, infrastructure development, is key to the future. And it's probably the greatest opportunity to improve the social and environmental economic performance. Cambridge, where we are, where MIT is going through a major zoning review right now. Many cities are. And they're using the old mechanisms, not the new mechanisms. This is an opportunity to rethink all of this. Kendall Square, 1966, it turned into an office park. In 2020, we went back, this is Insight now, we went back and looked at the data and what happened when, here we go. Starting in 1980, you see the purple line. This is the development of office space, but the percentage of housing and amenities dropped. You see, there's no feedback mechanisms, nothing in the regulations that will help create a harmonious community. Natural ecosystems have these feedback mechanisms, but we don't have them in governmental systems. In New York City, in the 1960s, they realized that if they could give developers a bonus, they would gladly put in features that were designed to support the community, like a public plaza. And that led to incentives that are built into the zoning, but they're not dynamic. So we're looking at a new process, and I'll end with this. We start with Insight. These are a deep analysis of every neighborhood. Are the jobs and the housing aligned? What are the amenities that are needed? The schools? What are the transportation patterns, property values, all of that? And then we go in, and for each community, we can do an analysis to determine what are the priorities. This is working with the communities. What do they need most? So number one on this list is a community center. They need lots of things. So then you process all of that information. And this could be like an AI city advisor. This could be a non-voting city superintendent that advises the supervisors. So this goes to the community. They can review it. It also goes to the supervisors. It can be in the form of legislation, you see, and it can happen every week. And the input from the community then can flow to the supervisors. Can you click it? This is not working. There we go. And then, so this is like a continuous process of analyzing the data, calculating what the priorities are, setting the priorities, putting that in the form of legislation for the supervisors, then the developers would select which features work best for them. They have choice, it's not mandate, but they can pick the features that they are interested in developing, but of course the higher the priority, the more incentives they get, so you tend to pick from the top of the list. And then the next project, all of this gets updated, and this is an iterative process. Now it's way too complicated to do by hand. We have the tools now to do it in an automated way. We have the data analytics, we have the AI algorithms, we have the interfaces to do it. And so we now have a new lab that we're just launching in San Francisco, and this will be the main feature. And I'm hoping that we can find ways to work with all of our labs in the network to look at these new governance models, because I think that is the greatest opportunity for urban transformation. I think we have the data analytics, we have the prediction models, we know what the good ideas are, we know how to engage with communities. Now we have to work on these new governance models, and I'm hoping here in Gipuzkoa we can find unique ways to meet the unique needs and opportunities here in this location. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kent. It was great to dive in the City Science process and to understand, to know more about those highlighted projects that you work in the group. Our next speaker will deep into the history of the City Science Network, Luis Alonso is a principal researcher scientist in the City Science Center. He oversees the integration of the group's diverse research topics in the City Science Network to provide comprehensive solutions for urban and country-scale challenges. Some of Luis' key research themes include environmental, social, and governance metrics, a climate model to promote sustainable and local interventions, and a new systems and strategies for dynamic urban planning. Luis will present the City Science Network and highlight some projects with interesting synergies for our work here in Gipuzkoa. Thank you, Luis.
It is a pleasure to be here today. Let's see if the clicker works, because I am not as good as Kent. So if it doesn't work, I will stop a little bit, because again, after Kent's presentation, it's also tough to make a presentation. So let's see. So I'm going to talk about the City Science Network, the mutualistic model for collaborative urban innovation. Okay, so what is this thing about the City Science Network? I think most of the people in the room, you know what is the City Science Network, but let me go little by little through it. At the City Science Network, what we do is we collaborate and learn with and from the cities. We align unlikely partners, the government, the industry, the academia, and the citizens, because unlikely partners working together, that's what brings innovation, and that's key. Also, we build sister labs like this one in Gipuzkoa with the best local experts. We have a lot of local experts in this room. I cannot say all the names, but I mean, like Zuriñe and her team, Igor and his team, Teknun. I mean, like, I think we have good examples in the room. But why we have these sister labs and these experts is because we want to develop hyper-local solutions for global problems in order to improve quality of life. Okay, that's very important. I'm going to make my, own journey through the City Science Network. It's going to a little bit Luis style, so let's see. The City Science Network started in Andorra. It's 10, 11 years ago. That was the first time that we built a collaboration. And it was not with a city, it was with a country. And we had a huge amount of projects. I mean, there are many that I really like, but the collaboration with the COVID-19 research, I think that was pretty cool, because Andorra was leading the research, and we collaborate with them to correlate the data from pandemic to mobility data. And then, thanks to that knowledge, they could build policies to help essential workers to do their job in a way that in the United States, in Forbes, they were saying, listen, United States have to learn from Andorra. I think that's pretty cool, and it's a huge impact for the network. But Kent, he really started thinking about the network when Hamburg joined us, okay? They were the second lab, a few months later, and Kent was like, what if we make a City Science network of collaborative cities? That was fantastic. We have done, again, a lot of projects with them, and Kent has explained a little bit the Finding Places project. That is, we could collaborate to find places for 10,000 refugees, so they could integrate in the German society, and they could have access to education, to healthcare, to jobs. That was very successful, as Ken has explained it. But all the labs, we don't work all the time with cities. Taipei is a good example of that. What we do in Taipei is we build cool robots, and we build autonomous vehicles as well. So as Ken was showing before, the persuasive electric vehicle, it is also a collaboration with Taipei. So that's very cool. PEV is the name, no? Persuasive electric vehicle. It's a vehicle that is supporting public transportation in the last mile, and when it's not moving people, it's moving goods. So this is a prototype that we did with Denso, the company Denso, that is a member of the Media Lab. Let's fast forward a little bit in the network. We have one point when Ken was like, okay, now we have a network, so what if we make a summit? What if we have all the network together and we make a huge party where everybody can share ideas and we can share knowledge? And if we talk about the summits, we have to talk about Shanghai. Shanghai, again, we have developed a lot of open source tools with them, but the most impactful thing that we have done with them is the City Science Summit 2018, where we have 3,000 people in the room. Yeah, that was kind of scary. We have almost 1 million people online watching us for I mean, for Shanghai, that's nothing, for China, but for us, it was a huge impact. The most important thing is that this year, we are hosting the 9th edition of the summit, and it's going to be in Biobío, in Concepción, in Chile. And everybody in this room is welcome to come. Please join us. It's going to be amazing. Again, let's fast forward in time. Now we have a network, we have a summit, and can realize in one point that, okay, so we are working in the global north when 90% of the new urban growth is going to happen in the global south. And most of that urban growth is going to be informal, okay? So it's going to be slums. A lot of times when people ask me, how is going to be the city of the future, I usually say, it's going to be informal, it's going to be a slum. So at that time, Kent and Norman Foster, they start thinking, how can we collaborate with informal settlements? And they came out with the idea of the power of without, okay? So at that time, we start the collaboration with Guadalajara. They have many, many projects. I think Andres is going to show us very cool stuff about that. But one that I want to highlight is architecture without architects. Yeah, architects, we are not necessary. Because in places like in Lomas del Centinela, an informal settlement in Guadalajara, they know how to build houses. That's not the problem. The problem is building a house following the standards, the legal standards. So what they are doing is like, what if we have augmented reality? So we help people building their own house follow, like the standards, the legal standards. Also, we have opened a collaboration in Concepción in Chile that is the first laboratory in the southern hemisphere. We are collaborating with informal settlements as well over there, also with Native American people in La Costanera in Concepción, trying to tackle the house scarcity. But the most important project is that they are growing now, this lab, and they have different projects, like the one in San Pedro. And the one that I want to highlight is the latest one, that they have with Talcahuano Port, because they have a city that they have a huge port that is amazing, but is giving a lot of trouble to the city, the logistics, etc. And not only the city, but also to the informal settlements around the city, and they don't have a way to communicate with each other. So we have built a tool where the three stakeholders, they can collaborate and share ideas, so they can understand the impact from the different stakeholders and have a meaningful conversation. And in this kind of quick explanation of the network, I want to finish at the City Science Lab Gipuzkoa here. I mean, I don't want to make a spoiler. You're going to spend the day with us. I think it's going to be amazing. You're going to have amazing speakers. But I just want to say, among all the projects that we are doing together, we have a huge, beautiful opportunity to work in the regional strategic plan, where we can have, again, unlikely partners working together, government, industry, citizens, academia. And what if we can collaborate, break the silos, share data, and have innovative ideas for the region of Gipuzkoa? I mean, again, I think Naroy is going to explain a little bit about the preliminary tools that we are building. And yeah, this is a little bit the picture that we have today about the network. But Zuriñe threw me a hot potato, and she was like, no, why you don't talk about the collaborative network, no? And this is a little bit a beautiful picture of the network, because I have been explaining the collaborations between MIT and the different nodes of the network, but what about the collaborations that happens inside of the network? For instance, the mobility choice model. Gipuzkoa is leading a collaboration between Guadalajara and Biobío, because Gipuzkoa has developed the mobility choice model. It's a model where you can predict, okay, if a person goes from point A to point B, it's most likely going to use public transportation, cars, bikes, as Unai was explaining in his presentation. Okay, and then you can also put some what-if scenarios. What if I bring this policy? How is that going to change the mobility of the region? So now Guadalajara and Concepción, they want to learn about this model, and they want to deploy that in their regions. Another very cool collaboration is the micro-credential project. As I have explained, in Guadalajara, we have people in the informal settlement that they know how to build a house, but they are in the informal economy because they cannot build legally a house. So what the University of Guadalajara is doing is like, what if we take these people, they go back to the university, they have some classes, so they reinforce their knowledge, and then with that, they can have a certificate, a credential, that helps them to jump from the informal economy to the formal economy. This is becoming huge in Mexico. It's starting to be something at the federal level, And now we want to have this in Chile, in Concepcion. Then the next collaboration is learning from informality. Hamburg is, with the laboratory UNITAC, is leading a collaboration with the cities in the network that they have informal settlements in order to help these informal settlements to learn from their own data. So it's kind of a citizen science where people from informal settlements, they can build their own databases, and with that information, they have some kind of power to talk with formal institutions and ask for money, for help, etc. This project is very cool. I don't know if Andorra is going to explain this project, but I really love it. The wildfire prevention, the firefighters from Biobío, they have a lot of data about wildfires, okay? And in Andorra, they have a lot of data about cattle, because they have sensorized the cattle. And there is a lot of research that correlates cattle in the forest and prevention of fires. So what if we could merge these two data sets and make a, kind of a prevention, a prevention tool for preventing wildfires? Tourism, I think Marta is going to explain this from Andorra, but Andorra has 11 years working with telecom data, understanding the impact of tourism through telecom data, and now they are also sharing that knowledge with the network. Dynamic tools actually is dynamic urban planning is everything that Ken has shown before. The entire network, we are building open source tools together so we can deploy, CityScope 3.0, dynamic urban planning, immersive tools, all together, so that knowledge is part of the network and we can keep sharing with each other. And just to finalize, the regenerative futures is how can co-evolve in nature. I'm sorry, Jordi, this title is kind of complex. So, the question here is how humans can grow in nature without destroying nature, okay? We don't have an answer for that, but we are looking for an answer in the network. This question started in the last summit last year that was in Andorra, and now we want to bring the question to the COP30. Again, it's going to be in November, and everybody in this room is also welcome to come with us and have this, they have stopped my slides. Let me go back. The clicker is, okay. Okay, COP30. And now, so this is the picture a little bit of the network that I really like. They are not a bunch of dots in a map. Their connection is a mesh of connections between cities. So for us, the most important thing is that connection between the cities, but actually this is the picture of the network that we really like. Kent always say, we don't work with cities, we work with people. Eskerrik asko, thank you very much. The clicker, please.
Thank you, Luis. Our next speaker is Marta Domenech. Marta Domenech Ferrés is the Managing Director of Andorra Research and Innovation, the institution that hosts the Andorra City Science Lab, where she drives strategic projects focused on climate and social resilience, sustainable forest management, and innovation in mountain environments. Andorra is a country that has changed a lot during the last years, and Marta will present their approach in the challenge of fostering efficiency, equilibrium, and harmony with landscape, having technological developments while also preserving well-being. We will also hear about their project about traffic flow in Andorra. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you. Good morning. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So I am Marta Domenech. I am the director of Andorra Research Innovation, the institution that is holding our City Science Lab in Andorra. Oops. Okay. So we are doing research about different items. We pivot in different pillars: sustainability, mountain. As Andorra is a very small country, we work together, all together. So sometimes it's a little crazy because we work with different disciplines: biologists, climatologists, sociologists, etc. So this is quite funny, but I think it's one of our strong points to meet solutions. So maybe some of you are wondering where exactly is Andorra. Andorra is close, a little close to here, 200 kilometers from the east. It's an amazing country, very little country, in the heart, nestled in the heart of the Pyrenees, with 468 kilometers only and 85,000 people, and increasing its population each day by day. So we are proud about our natural, cultural heritage, but recently, as the other parts in the world, especially in Pyrenees, what is one of the hot spots of biodiversity in the European scale, we are suffering the effects of climate change. We've seen in this graphic the temperatures are increasing a lot, especially in the south part of the Pyrenees that we live, in the Iberian side. So our models, when we are working with other entities in this whole mountain range, are expecting more meteorological extreme events, especially dry periods and heat waves. So this has a direct consequence in the snow cover and snow depth, as we can see here. I don't see the video, well, doesn't matter. So this is quite a challenge for us because we receive more or less 8 million of visitors a year, and our population is increasing a lot. Here we can see the production before the 17th and the 18th years, we produce more energy than we use, and then this trend is reversed. So we have an increase in population. I always talk about the global change, not only climate change, because include climate change and then this growing population. So we have an impact in our limited resources. And we have to deploy different strategies in order to be more effective in this context. So this is the typical quadruple helix, what I like a lot in the case of Andorra, because we work a lot with this scheme. For us, it's very important because we have this strong point that we are very closer to the government, we are very closer to the politicians, we are very closer to the private sectors, and all that make the possibility to exchange. And I think Andorra Tech Innovation play a key role in that, to push and make this exchange and go with rapid solutions. So another fantastic tool and paradigm that we started recent years is that we begin to take part in the European Network of Living Lab. In fact, Andorra is the only country in the world that all the countries, the country scale, are a living lab. So this living lab is a co-created space that we can test, we can prove, we can implement different technological solutions for taking into account this challenge. So we try to transform challenge to opportunities. And I present only 1 or 3 of these recent initiatives. Luis presented the others. But I am a forest engineer also, so I love very much our forest. Andorra is covered by more than 40% of forests. So our forests are suffering a lot, and our forests are have a lot of ecosystemic functions about avalanche, about tourism, about the carbon sink, and all of that. And these forests are suffering a lot by this dry periods and the high temperature with evapotranspiration. So in this case, we provide a different device we call tree talkers. We put in different trees, and this is to track the impact of the climate change adaptation measures, because we work very close to government to develop different close-to-nature solutions about forest management, about different kinds of silviculture, and to track the impact of these measures, we use this. I always say that these tree talkers translate in our human languages the feelings of the trees. That means especially the water needs, for example, or the radial growth, the carbon sink. So it's quite useful for us to see this kind of impacts if we can correct the different strategies. Another one is this early warning of meteorological extreme events that we have, because we We have all the population concentrated in the lowest part of the valley. With this kind of risk, with big slopes, we have a lot of exposure, and we are very vulnerable to this. So started with innovative solutions, deploying a platform, a multi-risk platform. This is a video. This can advise at time the different modeling data combining with real-time data, so we can take a very accurate prediction in order to take this protection or auto-protection at a state level. And the last one is about mobility, because in this little country we have many people with the traffic jams in the mornings, in the afternoons. So we address that with this model. Is this model we started 3 years ago, and it's made about counting real data, counting these cars. And we can, as Luis explained well, we can calibrate this model with real mobile data. That is very nice for us. And the good news is that next month, this will become the national model of mobility in Andorra. So I finished with the same photograph because it's a real nice memory for us, the last summit in Andorra, and we think we can share, we can learn together, and we can deploy different ideas and initiatives in this context. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marta. Actually, as Luis presented before, both Andorra and Hamburg are the oldest labs in the network, so they are a reference for us with no doubt. Now we will have Heike Luken, a cultural scientist with a keen interest in the intersections of urban space, knowledge, and design. As a researcher associate at the City Science Lab at Hafen City University, Hamburg, she leads the project Cozy Cockpit Urban Infrastructures. Heike will present how the City Science Lab in Hamburg was created and consolidated, as well as some ongoing highlighted projects they are working on. Thank you, Heike. Heike.
Thank you very much also for having me and for giving me the chance to present the City Science Lab in Hamburg. And I entitled my little talk Tools for Transformation, because that's what we think is really necessary. We need to change cities, the way we are living in cities, and we think that's the best we can do is doing it collaboratively. I hope you agree at the end of my little talk. So the City Science Lab in Hamburg is based at the university, Hafen City University, which is a city for metropolitan studies with a strong focus on digitalization and sustainability. And it's a rather young university compared to others in Hamburg. It was founded in 2006. And we are based there with a City Science Lab. You already saw the picture many times today. Thanks for Kent for introducing the Finding Places project. That's sort of the initial project for us in the MIT Corporation, where we found accommodation for refugees from Syria in 2015 and in workshops throughout 2016. And that was sort of the birth of the City Science Lab in Hamburg. We work, or we do basic and applied research in national and international corporations or networks. And another one that was also mentioned by Candice and Luis, the United Nations network. We're working within the UNITAC project, that is the United Nations Innovation and Technology Accelerator for Cities. And that means that we are aiming to bring the 16 Sustainability Development Goals to life within projects throughout all the world, and using many of the tools we are developing in the City Science Lab in Hamburg to many countries in the world. The City Science Lab Hamburg has given itself a manifest years ago because we strongly believe, for example, in collaborating with citizens as strong partners for our projects. We also believe in co-creation, and we believe in interdisciplinarity to really gather feedback and insights and perspectives from various angles on a problem given. We really enforce open data and open standards for all the tools we are implementing or deploying. And we try to, as often as possible, also incorporate artistic practices to really work together with artists in different projects to keep in touch of an inspiring and different perspective on our projects too. So that's sort of the main core research areas where I'm holding: the multi-stakeholder collaboration, data and modeling, and narrative and interfaces, and we do that on topics such as mobility, many of them dealing with sustainability in general, but also on crises that affect cities more and more. This is our team in Hamburg, even though it's not all of us really, because many of the student assistants we really love and love to work with are missing here. But we are quite a big team now, also due to the international colleagues from Unitec, and we really have very sort of interdisciplinary backgrounds or backgrounds from like architecture, sociology, like Marta just said from Andorra as well. That's what we all really enjoy and what really makes our work so vibrant and sufficient, I think. Just a quick note on money, that's always interesting as well. I think we are almost 100% third-party funded, so we're working with EU projects or foundations to get the projects at the City Science Lab in Hamburg funded. What we really like and what we're really relying on is the digital city strategy that Hamburg deployed more or less, or started deploying 20 years ago, and that sees Hamburg as a sort of living laboratory for digitalization. And we are really sort of happy to have two innovations that they made by that. First of all is the urban data platform that makes public data available in the internet. The urban data platform has all sorts of data sets, statistics, measurements, all sorts of things you can imagine really on the topic of Hamburg, or with dealing with Hamburg data-wise. And again, it's open source, it's open data, so most of the data can be used by really everyone searching on the urban data platform. And the second one is a geo-portal called Master Portal, which we're really relying on. The Master Portal is sort of the base for every web-based application that is used in the city of Hamburg. And geo-data obviously is very important, or is fundamental for projects to deal with cities, as it has to be exact, or geo-reference data is exact data that we are relying on. And we made use of that, for example, for this project on wind turbines. 80% of gross electricity demand has to be by renewable energies by 2030, and we have a special law in Germany saying that 2% of the land in Germany has to be used for wind power turbines. So it is nice to have, everyone wants it, you can say, but it's a bit of a NIMBY discussion, isn't it? So not in my backyard. Everybody wants it, nobody wants it in his or her backyard. So we last year we did 4 workshops with planners, politicians, people from authorities and districts to find out where potential areas and locations for wind turbines in Hamburg could be. You can imagine Hamburg is a city, it's dense, to find locations, it's really a hard job, but we managed to do so by gathering these stakeholders in 4 workshops and preparing data sets like this with the loads and loads of parameters and data sets so that they could make decisions and luckily find places in Hamburg where the future wind turbines can be built. That is just an overview of our current projects, many of them dealing with sustainability. Loads of them are really focusing on transforming cities in a sustainable way, but there's also data-driven projects like COSI, the Cockpit's urban infrastructure, that I'm going to deep dive into a bit. Now, COSI is called Cockpit Urban Infrastructure, or städtische, that's where the S comes from in German, infrastructure. And it's one of the eldest projects we are dealing with at City Science Lab. It helps employees working for the Free and Hanseatic city of Hamburg to visualize, to analyze, and even to simulate. It draws data in real time from the Urban Data Platform. It uses, as you can see, the master portal maps. And with the help of that, you can visualize, for example, not only special data from authorities and districts, but you can also merge it with statistical data from the statistical authorities in the north of Germany. So what you can really do with COSI, for example, is writing reports on what sort of social infrastructure you have in the quarters and districts. You can even simulate what would happen if you build a new quarter or even just new housing project in terms of how many more, grocery shops you'd need, what it does to care situations and so on. So that really is the tool to analyze and to simulate your quarter in depth. We're using COSI, for example, also to be spread into other projects, and we just received the project question, or the answer, the question from the Ministry of Transport. For transport and mobility transition, to help with the massive construction sites going on in Hamburg throughout the next years. As it's written there, by 2028, Hamburg is going to spend 28 billion on construction sites to repair streets and roads, and it's going to be massive, and it already feels like we are living in a construction site at the moment anyway, so that's going to even build up furthermore. So what you really need to do is to get people involved in the construction processes together, to work together, to really ideally communicate with each other, to plan those construction sites to the best. As they're always claiming, we are having critical data as it's infrastructural data. They're really searching for a way to exchange their data and to really be able to work together. And that's what we are supplying. We're using COSI for them to have a sort of data hub to work together. And the second thing we are doing there is what really is needed is good communication. It's such a nuisance to be stuck in traffic jam all day on your way to work. So you really want to be informed in advance in a proper way. So that's what we're doing as well. We're trying to build a tool so that citizens, but especially caretakers or rather immobile people, get informed in advance in a way that they'll understand and that they can make use of in their everyday life. And the last project I want to introduce to you, just brief, is the Collaborative Alliance for Research on the Energy Transition in Hamburg. That's a cooperation with two other universities in Hamburg, Technical University and University for Applied Science. And again here, same issue really. All the energy companies say that we're dealing with critical data, it's infrastructural data, we can't share it, but they have to share it to, energy transition is sort of a common, a joint project. So we are together with the two other universities trying to get energy simulations done jointly by all the energy companies involved, by all the districts and authorities involved, to make sure that they can plan together properly, that they can inform stakeholders in a certain way, and that's done more easily. So, as I said before, our core research areas are these three, but I hope I could show a bit that what we're mainly doing is trying to create knowledge repositories repositories to make people working together to make decisions easier. Cities are complex, so we have to create good data, understandable data, and to make decisions easier and join them collaboratively. Thank you very much. That one goes back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Heike. So now it's my pleasure to present City Science Lab Gipuzkoa and how we are approaching the mobility transformation in the region. So City Science Lab Gipuzkoa is a project that was created in, sorry. Yes? No. Can I go back again? Thank you. It's a project that was created in 2023 from a collaboration among MUBIL, the MIT Media Lab, and the Gipuzkoa Regional Council, with the intention of doing research around mobility with social impact and through collaborative work. Additionally, a collaboration was agreed with Tecnun, the School of University, from Universidad de Navarra to include researchers, professors, and students in the research of the group. This is us. The team has been growing since then, and today the lab is an option for those visiting students at MIT that want to continue their research at home. We have generated 2 PhDs and more are to come, and a good number of students are contributing with their bachelor thesis and internships, and I wanted to acknowledge their contribution too. We do open research, and we dedicate time to get involved in activities and sessions with companies and other entities. So we are aligned with the reality of mainly local companies, and we try to search for. We are looking for collaborations. Actually, this afternoon's workshop will be a good opportunity for that. And these are the 3 axes around which the project revolves. First axis is CO2 emission reduction. 2005 was a year with a historical peak of CO2 emissions, and the regional government has set a plan to reduce those emissions and to reach climate neutrality by 2050. The evolution is good, and we are aligned with this plan because most of the sectors are reducing their emissions. However, this is not the case of transport. Transport not only represents more than 40% of the emissions, but it's also increasing. So if we don't revert this rising tendency in transport emissions, we won't achieve climate neutrality no matter how good we do in the rest of the sectors. So that was first axis. Second axis is territorial cohesion. Gipuzkoa, due to its rugged orography, has been developed in 7 different valleys surrounded by mountains, and each valley has a strong cultural, social, and economic character. They are also provided with the services and amenities they need for daily life. So we can say that it's not common to have dormitory towns here where you mainly go to sleep, but that our lives, our daily lives, usually happen in the surroundings of our residential place. This is nature in here that we want to preserve, so our work tries to align with this distributed nature of the region. And third axis is economic promotion. Gipuzkoa has a strong industrial tradition, and mobility is a key player in its economic structure, from manufacturing to logistics and or smart mobility services. Research and data are crucial to drive mobility transition. For example, a data-based model for urban logistics can not only improve efficiency, but can also generate some business opportunities for local startups. So overall, creating the data ecosystems is going to promote, is going to be key for the transformation of Gipuzkoa and to make this region a mobility innovation hub. Taking into account this axis, we see mobility as a piece of a complex system that has an impact and can be influenced by lifestyle, professional activity, land use, new fuels, or taxation, among others. And I like to talk about mobility in 3 layers. First layer is how can we move? So what's the mobility offer? We can include the bus lines here, its frequencies, the road infrastructure, where are the stops, which is the train services, where are the bike lanes, etc. So which are the possibilities we have to move from one point to another? This is the first layer. The second layer will be how we actually move. So which is the executed mobility demand? Because I can have a bus from my house to my workplace, but I still, for some reason, prefer to take the car. And understanding not only which is the mobility offer, but how we are using that mobility choices we have, can give us some insights, and for example, like having traceability and understanding the relation between the use of public transport or private cars, or can, for example, give us the use we are giving to electric vehicles that we can maybe use for the dimensioning of batteries, taking into account the use we are going to give to that batteries in the region. And in a third layer, I see the fact that how we would like to move. So not only due to the mobility offer, how we are doing mobility right now, but how we would like to do it in the future. So there's also difference among the data we have available. This data in the third layer is more difficult to get because it's not something it's happening, so it's not something we can measure. But we are already using, for example, the mode choice model that predicts in Gipuzkoa, which is the preferred mode of transport we are going to use depending on the situation. And between the first and the second layer, I have to say that data about mobility offer is available and is openly available, while privacy comes into action in the second layer. So this is work in progress, and this is something I would like to continue working together. Yeah, and in our work, I would also like to differentiate between 2 main steps. The first step is getting the knowledge of how things are happening today in Gipuzkoa around mobility. So this will be modeling a baseline scenario. We are approaching this in 2 different aspects. First aspect will be people mobility, and the second aspect is the freight mobility. So with these 2 visions, we have an overall overview about the baseline scenario here in Gipuzkoa. Having that knowledge, the natural way to continue the work will be to jump and to start making predictions, trying to imagine which are the future scenarios we want to jump to, and modeling and finding the metrics that we need to quantify to jump to those what-if scenarios that we are imagining. So the talks we are going to have after the cafe will cover these two steps. Some of the projects are still in the first stage of the work, but that the natural evolution of this work will be to start adding interventions to that baseline scenario we are modeling. Sorry. Yeah, no problem. I wanted to highlight these 5 projects, starting with the one Naroa is going to present about 30-minute accessible region. That's a project that's covering people accessibility to general services like hospital and libraries, and we have been studying which is the time we need from each building in Gipuzkoa to the nearest service for more than 80 types of services in 4 different modes of transport. In this stage of getting the knowledge about what's happening in Gipuzkoa, there's also the project that Nere Arroniz is going to present that's more focused on freight transport, and Nere is measuring which is the freight attraction and generation and production from the different industries and establishments that we have in Gipuzkoa. And these 2 talks will be followed by other 3 projects that are already in the prediction stage of the work. First will be given by Íñigo Azcárate, and Íñigo is analyzing traffic flow in highways, and he's developing a model to predict the traffic flow evolution depending on different conditions like meteorology and other parameters. Oscar Rojo has been working in a beautiful project with urban data, and he will propose giving autonomy to lightweight vehicles like bicycles in San Sebastian. And Giuseppe Foti is going to present a project that's more focused in commuting. So big companies now in Gipuzkoa are compulsory to develop their own mobility plan. But big companies, and I mean big with those companies that have more than 100 employees, cover only 1/4 of the total employees in Gipuzkoa. So we are also proposing to make collaborations with surrounding small and medium-sized companies so they can develop a unique mobility plan. And Giuseppe has been trying different interventions in this project and measuring the CO2 reduction that interventions would provoke in a regional scale. And these projects that we have been working in collaboration between the MIT team and the local team will be presented by a talk from Arnaud Grignard, who's going to set the context with his talk about participatory simulation. And they are also going to be followed by 3 more talks, one from Andrés Rico, who's going to speak about community-based sensing, so how we can develop sensors to create that data that's still missing. And Pau Gutiérrez will present about the role of students in the lab, which is being very, very beneficial. And Maitane will speak about a beautiful project too that they are doing in collaboration with the Basque Culinary Center that's around gastronomy, but as its title says, is much more than gastronomy, in fact. So it's time for the coffee now. We will see here in 10 minutes, maybe. Yes, so see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Yeah. So, welcome again. We are going to start with the second part of the event. Now, as you know, we will have a sequence of very short talks that are going to give us an overview of the work that is being done in collaboration with between the MIT group and the local group. And we are going to start with Arnaud Grignard, who's going to give some context for these talks and for the kind of work we do in the group. Arnaud Grignard is a computer scientist specializing in complex systems modeling and information visualization. He pioneered a novel approach to agent-based simulation, enhancing real-time visualization of both data and simulation outputs. He's currently a researcher at the French National Research Institute for Sustainable Development and a research affiliate in the City Science Center at the MIT Media Lab. His current research focuses on participatory science applied to sustainability challenges. We recently had the pleasure to start working with Arnaud, and I hope this is only the beginning of a successful collaboration. Thank you, Arnaud.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Really good morning, everyone. Thank you, Zorine, for the introduction. I will be very quick because we have lots of amazing talk that will arrive. I will speak about participatory simulation and sustainability very quickly. So I am now a researcher in a French institute that I will briefly introduce, and I was also a research scientist at the MIT Media Lab, where I am now a research affiliate. Kent and Louis already made a great description of the Media Lab. I will quickly introduce IRD and show you some projects that are using a specific methodology called agent-based modeling developed by some partner in the City Science network, and one of them, as Zorine mentioned, in San Sebastian. So very quickly, the IRD stands for French National Institute for Sustainable Development. So the main goal of our research is to work on the SDGs metric in 5 different domains about ecology, ocean, continental surface, societies, and health and societies. And we work a lot with, we heard this morning about the Global South, so lots of collaboration between France and Global South country. Those 5 domains are spread in different units, and the one I am working is called UMISCO, stands for Unité de modélisation mathématique et informatique des systèmes complexes. It's based in France, but we have 4 other centers in Morocco, Senegal, Cameroon, and Vietnam. And we are mainly working on 4 scientific themes in order to propose new methodology and innovation to meet the needs of sustainability science, whether it's using modeling, agent-based modeling and mathematical modeling, AI more and more, and deep learning. We have also a team working on building low-cost sensors and data collection, and I am coordinating the team about participatory approaches. I will go very quick on this. Maybe later in the afternoon or tomorrow we can discuss this a bit more in detail. We are working on mobility, population dynamic, epidemiology. I will go quick on this because I want to spend more time on showing the approach when we deal with sustainability science, whether it's to improve the water usage or design an agricultural practice, of course, build sustainable cities when we deal with city science, or eventually anticipate pandemics. All of these systems, they share a common characteristic, is that they can be seen as complex systems with multiple components, sometimes with some emerging behavior and dynamic structure. So there are different ways to study those systems, and one of them that Kent already mentioned is called agent-based modeling. It's an approach which is based on an individual representation of your system. So each part of your system will be represented as a program, an algorithm, and will give you the possibility to explore, to build what we call miniature laboratory and do some experimentation on those virtual worlds in order to explore scenarios. And after me, you will see lots of application of specific agent-based model. To build those models, there are different software. One of them is called Gamma Platform. It's a dedicated software, open source, dedicated to the usage of agent-based modeling. I am one of the co-developers, and I will show you some example of what can be done with this software. I'm trying to be very quick. This is a conference that we recently did. Some people in the room contributed to that. It's a conference where every year we try to gather all the people working on this project, and there are people from different places, including people from the MIT. So this map, Luis mentioned it very well this morning about the network of the City Science network. It's all the blue point that you see here. I didn't put the San Francisco one, because I think it's one of the latest one. And the green point is some academic collaboration that we have since many years. And I am going to show you some application today, focusing on the application that are, let's say, in Europe, close to here. One in Boston, and if I have time, an ongoing project that is made recently in Vietnam. So when we deal with agent-based modeling, one of the first agent-based model that was integrated in Cityscope is this Cityscope Volpi. I think some of you might have seen it maybe in real in Boston. So here, those moving dots that you see on the table are called agent, and in this case, they represent a mobility model where we wanted to understand the impact of the housing on the innovation, and ideally at this time we wanted to understand the interaction between people in order to improve the innovation process in the cities. That was one of my first projects, and then, so we will see this for the third time, but it really showed that Andorra was a pioneer in this. In this approach, we did a coupling between data telecom. So we got some data telecom from Andorra Telecom, and we did an agent-based representation of it in order, in this case, to understand the tourism behavior, eventually to predict, this I also show it. So this is in Boston in the Media Lab where we built the dose table. So once you have your model that is developed on your computer, one of the goals is to spread it to as many people as possible. In this case, we had a meeting, a deployment in Barcelona, with Andorra. So this kind of tool can be used for communication purpose. And as in many City Science Lab, we have a replica, a copy of the Cityscope in the city. So here it was in Caldea, so that people can use it and develop it in the city. I will go very quickly on another approach that we do, and that's maybe something that can be done here. It's using those tools as a training tool for students. So during 1 week, we spend 1 week together with like 50 students, and we focus on a specific topic, a specific area of the city. In this case, it was to understand the impact of our daily commute on the air quality. So we came, Luis was actually there also, we came with our tools, our open source tool. We teach them to students, and then they apply it on a specific topic. So it's really a tool to train the student, and then they are kind of independent with this tool. So here the mobility patterns and the energy consumption were simulated in order to monitor the air quality with a classic ABM approach where each dot is a commute and will represent a certain CO2 emission. Going quick, I will skip this one. Something we did also with collaboration with the Media Lab and an architecture firm in Paris was to build also an agent-based model of the Champs-Élysées. And here the goal was to compare the Champs-Élysées as it was in 2020 and how it could be in 2030 with a proposal from an architectural firm. So here we had two simulations in parallel that was displayed on this table in Paris in a museum. It happens right before COVID. So after COVID, the exhibition was closed. But we deployed also a virtual representation of it at this time where people can use it remotely. Hamburg, I want to briefly mention this project that is an ongoing project with one of my students working there with Rico. We are trying to understand, using an agent-based approach, the impact of the demolition versus the retrofitting in Hamburg and understand what will be the impact in terms of CO2 emission. So this is an ongoing project to help the city of Hamburg to understand what is the best politics to adopt between demolition of building and retrofitting in order to reach ideally a zero carbon emission in 2050. In San Sebastian, I will be very quick because Oscar will have a dedicated talk about that. And this afternoon, you will be able to see the demo. We did a project with Gamma, working with mobility. Two scenarios, again, Oscar will present it more in detail, that give us the possibility to understand and explore the mobility system and the impact of having bike sharing in the city. But again, Oscar will speak more about that. And I will finish very briefly about an ongoing project that I am working on and that I will work for the next 2 years, but that can maybe give some idea about potential collaboration here. It's called Simple. It's a project funded by the European Commission. And here the question we ask is, how do we teach children about subjects such as climate change, lots of biodiversity and pollution? And how do we do that in this project? We explore how the virtual reality can be a complementary tool as a methodological tool for children in classroom. So this project is developed with Gamma for the simulation part and in Unity. Sorry for the technical aspect. Unity is also a software for visualization. And this coupling gives us the possibility to develop some virtual universe and deploy those tools in classes with children where it's part of their methodological approach. And I will finish with two applications. So this project is in 4 main countries, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand. And currently we have this first project, which is about flooding. So what is the impact of flooding? And in the game, you can place some dike and see very quickly how it will impact. And the 2 ongoing projects is one in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam to help children to understand how to adapt to the subsidence and the climate change in the Delta. And in Thailand, it's more about biodiversity and how to restore biodiversity in forests. And I will finish here. And thanks all the people that are on those pictures, and some of them are in the room. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Arno, for your talk. Yes, I will give it to Naroa. Thank you. Naroa, next speaker we have is Naroa Coretti Sanchez. Naroa is currently a PhD candidate in the City Science Center. Her research is focused on designing future mobility modes and understanding their impacts through modeling and simulations. Her current research studies the effects of introducing autonomy on shared micromobility systems from the perspective of vehicle design, fleet-level performance, and environmental impacts. Today, Naroa will present the research about accessibility to services in Gipuzkoa. This is a project we will share throughout the event, first with the demo of the regional scale cityscope, and also during this afternoon's workshop. So don't miss any detail of her presentation. Thank you.
So usually when we talk about mobility in this type of panels, we tend to focus on its associated negative externalities. So we might talk about pollution, noise, traffic accidents, congestion, as we've seen this morning, and so on. And then we typically discuss some of the solutions to these challenges. So we talk about electric vehicles, safe infrastructure, automated driving, and so on. And it is not to say that these are not important, but I think that often we tend to forget to discuss the underlying issue. When we travel, we don't travel just for the sake of traveling. We travel for something. We might travel to visit some friends, to go to work, to do groceries, to go to a restaurant, and so on. So traveling is not an end on itself. It's usually a means for us to access something that we need to visit or that we want to visit. So in order to tackle mobility-related issues, we often tend to need to focus on this underlying aspect of accessibility, and that's why we think it's such an important issue to consider here in Gipuzkoa. So for example, if we imagine a city where the accessibility is very low, so for example, restaurants or supermarkets are very scattered, people will have to travel for a long distance. And if there isn't a good public transportation system, people just do this distance by car. This has led over the years to this concept of more walkable cities or 15-minute walkable cities, where the idea is that you should have access to everything that you need in daily life within a walkable radius. However, what is a little bit unclear is how this translates into a region, right? In an area where, like here in Gipuzkoa, that there is like baserris or like more rural areas, smaller towns and so on, it's very difficult to have everything that you need in daily life within such a small radius. However, we do believe that there is a regional equivalent to that idea, which is having access to everything that you need in daily life within a 30-minute public transit ride. This could have many positive externalities. So, for example, we could reduce some of the negative impacts of traveling, like, as I said, pollution, congestion, and so on. It could also improve territorial cohesion and equity, because accessibility wouldn't be only good in the larger cities, but throughout the region. And lastly, it could improve the quality of life of residents who would have to spend less, like a smaller part of the day traveling to places. So we wanted to understand how far Gipuzkoa is from being such a 30-minute accessible region to kind of identify the gaps that we need to cover to get there. In order to do that, we started by gathering a lot of data in, for example, cafes, bakeries, gyms, churches, hospitals, and so much more. So in total, we gathered data around 80 types of services. So this was like the specific location for every single establishment in Gipuzkoa, so thousands and thousands of data points that required a lot of time of data gathering, cleaning, and so on. And then what we did is that for every single building, so it's like including my house, this building, this other building, and so on, we calculated the specific distances to every single amenity. So that led to millions and millions of routes that needed to be calculated, and we had to do this considering walking, considering bike, public transit, and car. So this was a lot of effort and a lot of work, but I do think it was really worth it, because that led us to have this tool where now we can analyze the accessibility that we have in every single building in Gipuzkoa. So for example, here we're seeing downtown San Sebastian, and I chose to analyze the accessibility walking to restaurants. There's different types of schools. So for example, elementary school. We also have things like hotels, or in shops we see like bookstores, jewelry stores, pet stores, so any type of place. So for example, I chose local supermarkets and libraries. This is just an example to give you an idea. So what we see through analyzing this, the color indicates the time that it takes, for example, in this case, walking to this type of services. So this is downtown San Sebastian. Everything is green. That's like less than a 15-minute walk. So we can see that the accessibility to at least these points of interest is very good in San Sebastian. We can also analyze what this looks like in other areas of Gipuzkoa. So for example, here we see that in Irun, downtown is good. In the outskirts is less so. We can also analyze what it looks like in Goierri. This is, for example, the accessibility by walking. But what happens if we analyze the accessibility by public transport? For example, we see that accessibility by public transport is better, but still, like, just considering this subset of amenities, there is areas that don't have a 30-minute access to even like these few types of services. So this is just an example to give you an idea of the type of exploration that this tool can allow. But what I think is very interesting is that you'll be able to test it later during lunch, and also we'll be using it during the workshop. So I'm sure you'll have your specific questions that you might want to explore. Lastly, this is not only a digital tool. We did put a lot of effort into making this a tangible tool because we think it's very important to bring different stakeholders to the table so that we can have discussions around accessibility and kind of it enables a more open discussion around it. Lastly, I would mention that in terms of the stakeholders that we think can find this interesting, for example, government agencies might want to utilize this to identify areas that are underserved and to prioritize future investments. A shop owner or entrepreneur might want to use it to find like a gap that is currently there that they might want to cover, or like even residents might want to use it to choose where to buy a house or where to rent. In closing, I would like to mention that this has been a very big team project, especially led by Ana Puente, who did her master's thesis in this, but it has been a great team of different researchers and students that have been involved in it. So thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to your feedback later.
Thank you, Nora. As next speaker, we have Nera Ronez-Aristi. Nera is currently a PhD candidate at the City Science Lab Gipuzkoa project in Teknon. She studies how to integrate freight transportation into the accessibility framework, modeling the influence of the economic activity and analyzing the impact of different types of interventions. Nera will present her approach for the analysis she is doing to understand the freight mobility in Gipuzkoa. Thank you, Nera.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. So freight transport in Gipuzkoa is very important for many reasons. On the one side, Gipuzkoa is located in the Trans-European Transport Network in a cross-border location, which makes it a transit region for a large number of trucks that have no origin nor destination in the region. Also, to this, we have to add the large industrial network that is located within the region and the economic activity of the cities and towns that are spread across the whole territory. Freight transport is essential to carry out the economic activity and our lifestyle, but it also has some negative impacts. For example, as it has been mentioned before, in Gipuzkoa, the 48% of carbon emissions come from the transport sector. Within this, the freight transport demand is seen that it's going to increase in the next years. So when talking about mobility, it is also very important to take into account the transport of goods that is required by our businesses and our consuming behaviors. Our consuming behaviors. So for that, in my project, the first step has been to characterize the freight transport that is used by the establishment, that it's required by the establishments in Gipuzkoa. And for that, we have been using freight trip generation models, which are some models that calculate the sum of the freight trip attraction and the freight trip production of the establishments based on the number of employees in the establishment and the sector that they are from. We have applied these models from the literature to more than 56,000 establishments in Gipuzkoa, and here you can see our results. As you can see, the establishments are mainly located in the main roads of Gipuzkoa, and this was a video. Bueno, the size of the establishment, it's the calculated freight trip generation by the model, and the color corresponds to the sector. With this information, what we want to do is analyze it in 3 different levels. The establishment level would be to identify the hotspots of freight trip generation in Gipuzkoa. Then, secondly, we would like to agglomerate the establishments by nearby and make a clustering of different sector distribution types and relate them to freight generation. And lastly, we want to also characterize municipal sociodemographics in relationship with the freight generation, taking this last one as an indicator of economic development. In this last part, these are some preliminary results we have, where here you can see how the population is highly correlated to the freight trip generation in the municipalities, and it's like a very common trend for all the municipalities. This indicates that social development is very related to the economic development. But if we zoom out, we can see that Irún and San Sebastián go out of that curve, which means that we need to have a broader approach when trying to understand the freight trip generation. Lastly, in this last part also, we are very interested in understanding the sociodemographic changes around the towns throughout the time, because we have the hypothesis that this might also change the consuming models. For example, in Gipuzkoa, some experts advise that the aging population will need supermarkets to be located in a more walkable distance from their homes, and this would change the transport demand, both for freight and for passengers, compared to a model where people use their cars to move to large supermarkets outside towns. So we want to understand also these dynamics. We want to understand how the region will change and which will be the needs for the freight transport to be more sustainable and to reduce the carbon emissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nere. We will have now Íñigo Azcárate with us. Íñigo is a researcher in the City Science Lab Gipuzkoa group. His research is focused on exploring high-level regional mobility solutions aimed at decarbonizing the transportation system. He developed AI mobility mode choice tools that facilitate policy-making to foster sustainable regions. Íñigo will present his ongoing work with real-time traffic flow data of Gipuzkoa highways. Thank you, Íñigo.
Good morning, everyone. And let me start with a scene I think many of you will recognize. Some of you might have experienced this even today or sometime during the past week or month. A lot of traffic, slowdowns at bottlenecks, and the frustration of seeing the minutes pass by. Today, I want to explore and explain you what's the impact of car-centric and congestionized regions, not just in our patients, but also in our safety, health and environment, and in our economy, and how we can use data and AI to create safer, smarter, and more sustainable road and mobility systems. Let me begin with the safety. In Gipuzkoa, in 2023, there were almost 3,000 accidents, and despite these levels are below European ones, car accidents are highly tied and directly tied to the number of private vehicles, which is an increasing number here in Gipuzkoa. Regarding health and environment, this increase in private vehicles is also related to an increase in CO2 emissions. Actually, as Nere just mentioned, over 45% of greenhouse gas emissions in Gipuzkoa are related to road transport. So more cars, more vehicles are generally related to more CO2 emissions, more particulate matter that contribute to health respiratory issues and other health-related data. So creating to health-related problems. So creating a sustainable transportation system is not only something related to climate action, but it also relates to public health. And lastly, regarding the economy, this is my daily commute from Vergara here to MUBIL. And as you can see, Google Maps provides a 15-minute variability. Something similar happens if the origin is set to Irún. And this variability at the end is related to congestion. And in the end results in higher fuel use, lost in productivity, but also in higher expenditure in road infrastructure. At the end, all these domains have and a negative impact, not just in us as individuals, but in us as a society. So we need to fix this somehow. In our case, we are using data provided by the Trade Research Center and the Infrastructure Department of Diputación that have installed 27 road system units throughout Gipuzkoa that capture Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices. And we are using this data to gain some insights on traffic analysis and create some predictive models that I will explain later. These road system units are located throughout the AP1 and AP8 from Vizcaya all the way to France. And we are actually, for now, using just Bluetooth data because it's, for now, as we have seen, more accurate, more representative, and represents unique identifiers of vehicles. And once we have this data, we have figured out two ways in which we can solve these car-centric congestionized situations. First is medium-term prediction. Here we talk about creating smarter and providing some intelligence to our road system to reduce congestion levels and improve flow. And secondly, testing some alternative scenarios to reduce this car dependency. Regarding medium-term prediction, we have used historical data on these RSU devices that capture Bluetooth devices, also meteorological data and events data. Events data can be sports events or other festivities, and we have created an artificial intelligence model that has the ability to predict either in 1 hour, half an hour, or 10 minutes in advance what's the traffic going to be like in all the RSU systems with some sort of accuracy. With this, we are able to first inform the population and help them make better decisions on when to travel, how to travel, why to travel. Also improve multimodality by knowing when traffic, getting better insights of traffic analysis and trying to dynamically change the public transit system. And also adjust the flow to improve congestion levels by, for example, doing ramp metering by using traffic lights at the entrance of highways. On a secondary level, we have also seen that this data is able to capture some events. For example, a Real Sociedad game on a Thursday or Sunday night, meaning that in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to work with the policymakers and try to create alternative scenarios, for example, rescheduling the start of event times, applying dynamic toll and fee policies, somehow to try to reduce this car dependency model and move towards public transit systems. And doing these two things, our objective at the end is, as I just said, move away from car-centric approaches towards a sustainable transportation system, reduce congestions, and move towards a greener transportation system with less cars, more public transit system, and less congestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Íñigo. Now we will have Oscar Rojo Avila. Oscar is a technical student. His bachelor's thesis project, which he will be presenting for us today, focuses on developing an agent-based model to simulate two different scenarios of the biking system in San Sebastian, with the aim of this being a decision-making tool for future modifications for the biking system. This project was supervised by Naroa Coretti. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you very much. So today I'm going to try to talk to you about two different scenarios or two different topics. First of all, I'm going to talk about agent-based modeling like Arnaud talked before. I'm going to talk about a brief explanation of why we think this is a very important tool to analyze future decision-making scenarios. And then we're going to talk about Mobiscope Donosti. That is a project we've been working with with the lab. And, well, a very brief explanation of what we've been doing these past months. So agent-based modeling, basically we like to describe it as this simulation or computational simulation of complex systems turned into the virtual environment. So this allows us to study really unpredictable models or systems and draw conclusions from these systems. This is very useful because we don't need to invest really great amounts of capital in these studies or in these implementations of the systems, and we can draw really interesting conclusions. There are three main layers for every agent-based model. Basically, the first one is if we're trying to model a city, the first pillar is going to be the people, like us, the citizens. The second layer, of course, will be the environment or the city itself, the infrastructure of the city. And the third component will be interactions between these agents and the environment that surrounds them. So there are many use cases for these kind of models. Like previously mentioned, epidemiology is one of them, urbanism, logistics, and of course, where we're today, mobility. So here's when we start to talk about MOBIScope Donosti. What is the purpose of MOBIScope Donosti? The project was born with the intention of being the basics or the basis of a real-time decision-making model that helps or supports different stakeholders to take decisions towards the modifications of the actual biking system or bike sharing systems of different cities. Right now we are using MOBIScope to represent it in Donostia San Sebastian, but it may be applied to different cities. That is the idea. So we implemented two models or two simulations for this project. The first one was the current scenario, how currently the bike sharing system works. So what happens if we make different iterations to the actual bike sharing system? And secondly, what would happen if we completely change the actual bike system and change it to autonomous vehicles like Kent mentioned before? So let's start by explaining the current scenario. So the actual or the current scenario was was implemented by using real-time data or real public data from Donosti, and we were capable of by studying how, depending on the number of bikes in the system, it would affect the impact. It would impact the user experience. So like we can see here in the video, depending on the number of bicycles, we're capable of adding new stations to the model with a cluster of prediction model. So in this case, we're capable of obtaining different results or outputs, such as the walking times of the final user, the bike riding times, and of course, when there's a trip served, unserved, when we want to grab a bike from a station, there are no bikes, or when we want to leave the station a bike and there are no spots. All of these can be obtained with this type of models. Secondly, we're going to explain the future scenario. There we go. So this type of scenarios or this type of situations give us more flexibility to study different scenarios, because here we can study what would happen if we change the battery charging rate, what would happen if we change the bicycle speed, the size of the battery. All of these components may be studied thanks to these models. So like we said before, there are many inputs and different outputs towards these models. Here's a brief explanation of how this type of models will work with autonomous driving. So like we see here, in my case, I would be the user, I will be the orange user. So like you can see here, there's an autonomous bike that comes to pick me up. Once I demand the trip, the bicycle will take me to my requested final destination. And once it leaves me in my final destination, it will be awaiting for another trip to be requested. These are some of the outputs this model can give us. So we consider that the unserved trips and served trips was interesting to mention. Depending on the waiting times the model is going to give us. So if we have more bikes in the systems, the waiting time is going to be less than if we have less bikes in the system, basically. We can also analyze the vehicle tasks in real time. So if there's many vehicles charging, depending on the battery size, of the autonomy of the vehicles, if there are many vehicles idling or many vehicles occupied. So we implemented this in a tangible desk, and so like we previously mentioned, we think it's important that different stakeholders approach to this kind of solution so we can have conversations, and that's why we implemented this in MOBIScope Donosti desk, that it will be presented in the demo space later on. This work was obtained thanks to the help of the City Science Lab here in Gipuzkoa, and to Sirviña and to Naroa. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and have a great day.
Next, we will have Giuseppe Foti, our next, with a strong background in both fundamental and applied research. His expertise spans analytical and computational modeling, as well as the development of smart sensors, IoT platforms, data analytics, and machine learning. Today, he will be presenting the project he leads in City Science Lab Gipuzkoa, that's measuring at a regional level the impact of some interventions to reduce CO2 emissions provoked by commuting to work. Thank you, Giuseppe.
Hi. So in the previous talk, we have seen the important role of models and simulation when dealing with urban planning or transportation planning. And my presentation will go in the same direction. I will show again the importance of modeling when trying to address this problem of CO2 emissions associated with commuting in Gipuzkoa. If we look at data, we see that transport is by far the largest contributor to CO2 emissions. And if we look more into detail, we see that transportation associated with work using car as a transport mode plays a major role in these CO2 emissions. So in the first year of our work at the City Science Lab Gipuzkoa, we decided to address this issue. And we developed a web interactive tool capable, which can be used by companies or public institutions to design a mobility plan. As Zurinya mentioned before, companies with more than 100 employees have to design a mobility plan by law. So we address the two issues, CO2 emissions and legislation. This tool is based on a machine learning model, a mode choice model, which has been presented before by Luis, by Inigo. And the capability of this tool, of this model, is to predict the mode choice of users based on their profile and on the offer of the public transport. Here you can see a short video of the tool. We have 3 panels. On the left side, we load the data, implement different kind of interventions. We can visualize the workers. So we are a company. Basically, we want to reduce the emissions associated with the commuting of our workers. We load the data of our workers. These red dots are the workers, and the color represents the transport mode. We run a baseline scenario where we do not have intervention, and then we start adding interventions like bus service. Here are the optimized routes of these, for this kind of intervention. Then we can add more interventions like remote working, and run again this machine learning model and see how these indicators, these aggregated indicators change on the right side of the panel. So we have a spatially resolved map of where CO2 is generated and the origin of this CO2, and we have these tools to implement different types of intervention. If we play, as a use case, we studied the commuting of 800 workers going to Escuzezieta. And here I'm showing a few results associated with different types of interventions. We identified 3 sets of parameters, but we can play around with these parameters, and we can combine any of these interventions. The point here is that for few of these interventions, the impact is more or less intuitive, or you can expect a linear increase of the impact in a proportional way with the number of workers affected by these interventions, like, for example, for remote work and electric car. But for other types of interventions, like for bus services, it is more complicated, and here models are very useful. So in the next few slides, I'm going to show you how models can help predicting very unpredictable situations. What I'm showing here is the reduction in CO2 emissions as we increase the number of routes of our bus service. So we are a company, we are providing this bus service to our employees, and as we increase the quality of our service, of course, we get a stronger reduction in CO2 emissions. The 3 curves refers to different types of buses. The red curve refers to gasoline buses, the orange curve to natural gas buses, and the green one to electric vehicles. Of course, with electric vehicles, we get the best results. And the number here within brackets represent the percentage of people using public transit once we introduce this service. So we have a reduction in increase in the impact. However, if we, for specific combination of routes and stops, we see that we get a less effective reduction in CO2 emissions. So in this case, models are useful because they can allow to identify these pathological cases, this very specific case which are not intuitive, or it's hard to deduce a priori. Also, we see that if we provide a service which is formed by two routes using gasoline or natural gas buses, provided that our routes are optimized, we can achieve a better result than with electric vehicles. So these are also not very intuitive results. The last result I'm going to show you is again related with this bus service. The blue dots here represent the workers. These lines represent the optimized routes of our bus service. And in a traditional approach, what one would do is to choose the stops based on the distribution of workers. And it works, it's fine. If you use this approach, you will get some reduction in the CO2 emissions. However, if you apply the machine learning model to this result, you see that only few of these stops are going to be used. So this emphasizes again the importance of using data-driven models to support traditional approaches. So we have seen that with this tool, one can implement different types of interventions, specifically company transportation, co-working, remote working, car electrification. And we can simulate the impact of each of these interventions or any combination of these interventions. And with this tool, one can test policies under different scenarios, identify priority actions, make an efficient use of resources, increase the impact of interventions, take bias-free decisions, let's say, and increase transparency. So I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have more questions, please join the demo tour later, or ask also to Maria Peña and Pablo Fernandez, who are students working with us, doing their bachelor project or internship project in this tool, focused on these further developments of this tool. Thank you.
Gracias.
Now we have Andrés Rico. Andrés is a graduate student from Mexico City in the City Science Center with a background in robotics, AI, and innovation. His main research goal is to understand ways in which we can better develop our urban sensing infrastructure. His current work at MIT, which he will present today, is focused on the development of low-cost, distributed, and opportunistic sensor networks. The sensors and algorithms have the goal of enabling bottom-up community-based insights that can improve future cities' socio-environmental performance. Thank you, Andrés.
Thank you, thank you. So now we're going to shift gears from pure modeling and insights into looking at ways in which we can get more interesting data about our cities. And so I hope that by now we have convinced you that cities are key drivers of change, mainly, as Kent said, because the remote is failing us again. They will represent most of the world's population by 2050. As we know nowadays, they already account for almost 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. So whatever we do in cities really can impact our long-term societal goals. And so at City Science, we aim to make the remote work, but also to to have efficiency gains and sort of build the right tools that will help us to keep the positive aspects of cities, like economic gains, efficiency, sustainability, optimization, but also maintaining some of the negative aspects to a minimum, such as pollution, segregation, and overcrowding. And so to do this, at City Science, but also researchers and governments around the world, are looking into different ways to use data to achieve these goals. So as you have seen throughout all of these talks, we can use this information to build interesting models that will give us insights into better urban planning. So we tend to use many types of information sources. We have sensors, we have social media, we have wearables, we have surveys, and each one of these types of sources comes with different trade-offs. So I want to look at some of the specific ones and most popular ones. So for example, census data. We also have telecom data, And we also have remote sensing. And so these sources, as you have seen, are very well used. We know how to use them well. They're easy to scale, but sometimes they come with problems, such as a lack of granularity. So, for example, we cannot see what happens. What happens below a building or in a public plaza with a satellite. So we usually tend to look at other types of information, and so that's why we have been working for years in this idea of community-based sensing, which aims to complement data sources like the ones that we have in Census or telecom data or others. And so this really started with the goal of actually being able to capture detailed urban complexity that other sources of information fail to capture. And so back in, Kent, I'm going to need your help here. I think it was 2004. Kent and other colleagues started to place sensors within a house, basically every appliance inside of a house. This was way before Google started to do this, before Apple started to do this. And since then, we've really gone crazy and placed these type of systems into many other areas of a city. So they've been on bikes, wearables, offices, in oceans, informal settlements. So we've done a little bit of everything, and today I want to talk a little bit about some of the key learnings that we have had through these sensor deployments. And so although we're MIT, we usually don't start this process with the technology. We actually begin with a lot of stakeholder sessions. So we meet with institutional stakeholders like companies, our member companies. We also meet with universities and researchers. But most importantly, we meet with community members and end users of the systems. And so what this engagement process allows us to do is to really be able to understand the goals, the desires, and the needs of people so that we can better design the sensor systems to meet those needs. And so since we're engaging with the communities, we actually get information systems that will be relevant to them. And since the sensing systems will be relevant, we will increase the odds of success for any deployment of sensors. And so then only after we get all of these insights, we go back into the lab. And usually, since these insights give us very specific variables that they want to monitor, we cannot achieve this monitoring with commercial sensors. So we go back into the lab, we build all of these systems from scratch, electronics, programming, and manufacturing of the cases. We then build different interfaces. One back. There we go. Different interfaces that can help us to visualize this information to gather more relevant insights. But most importantly then, we are City Science, we're not lab science. So we take them out into the real world, test the devices, see where they fail, and see how people or users can engage with them, and then eventually understand the ways in which the data can become useful for us. And so then, just to summarize everything, this is a way to get very fine-grained, timely, and accessible data that can help us to describe things like human behavior, mobility infrastructure, water infrastructure, waste infrastructure, you name it. We then take this new data, complement the existing sources like telecom, remote sensing, census campaigns, or others. We go back to the models that we have seen, we feed this into the models, and then hopefully, with a pinch of luck, we can have these models actually improve our cities and our policies around our networks, labs, and cities. So with that, I would like to thank you, hand it off to the next speaker, and we'll be happy to talk about sensors and data in the coming hours with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andres. Next speaker will be Pau Gutierrez. Pau is a PhD candidate conducting research on the transition toward smart mobility and accessibility with a particular focus on sustainable mobility, emerging mobility models, and their socioeconomic impact in the Gipuzkoa region. His professional background is related to automotive engineering, urban mobility, telecommunications, and business innovation. Today, Pau has assumed the responsibility of presenting the role of the students in the laboratory. Thank you, Pau.
Well, thank you so much. Today we have seen like so many projects, but I want to focus on the real muscle behind these projects, and I think here at the lab, and also not also in the Media Lab, but also as well in the City Science Lab Gipuzkoa. I think I want to give the credit the students deserve at our lab, because behind them there is we have a mission like research about mobility, but we prototype the future mobility, but we have to be aware that this mobility is also made, and we want to turn students in co-creators of that future, no? And yeah, at the end, students are not only for the university the best asset, not only as well for the lab, but also for society, no? And the lab, we have, as we saw in the last presentations, we have the great opportunity to connect and link challenges of the region with the students that live and study here. So at the end, as I said, it's like connecting these territorial challenges with the talent that has their own region. So from bachelor thesis, like for example, Martin, Maria, and also Anna, and to research internships, we are up today more than 13 students involved in the lab. And I want to focus on one of the project the second year student has involved in. Her name is Fatima. And I want to present the job because I think she made like a really good project. She developed by herself a project, the back end and the front end of this mobility platform that measures time between different transport models. And it's amazing how this talent, when you give them a purpose to the students, are able to develop these amazing tools. I mean, it's amazing to see how this willingness to learn is also performed and developed into this kind of tools, no? Well, at the end, I want to emphasize that we don't just teach the students and give them purpose and challenges, but also we want to develop. Also, we develop and we learn from them and with them, no? Yeah, and also I think like the students are the core of the lab, and as they don't just join the lab, I think they grow it. Not only the students, they grow the lab as well. So yeah, at the end is we are like a living bridge between challenges of the region and the talent the region has. This is very meaningful. And yep, I mean nowadays we have to be aware that research, talent, and society has to be on the same boat, because together we are shaping the future we want to live in, no? And last but not least, I want to appropriate the dilemma of the MIT, no? Imagine what we can become, but also taking it into account the students that we are in the region of Gipuzkoa, no? So I just had some little change and I added this. So thank you so much. That was everything. I let the word to Maitane. Thank you.
So yeah, there's only one last talk left by Maitane Iruretagoyena, who's a researcher and coordinator in the City Science Center at the MIT Media Lab, where she works on several projects creating visual media designs for art installations, identifying cost-efficient and lightweight infrastructure systems for the deployment in rapidly urbanizing areas, and designing hyper-efficient solutions in a micro-living environment. Maitane will present a new collaboration focus on food, which is about much more than gastronomy. Thank you, Maitane.
Thank you, Zuriñe. Well, I know that I'm the last talk before lunch, but don't worry, I won't talk about food, not in that sense. I'm going to talk about gastronomy as a tool for innovation, community building, and shaping the futures. Because our mission is to bring together like experts on the field, from Michelin star chefs to researchers, scientists, journalists on the field, so they can explore together how gastronomy can foster innovation, creativity, and sustainability. So years ago, we started in this path of exploring the food and how can we grow food in urban spaces. This is a project, City Farm. And so in Gastronomy and Beyond, we align with this vision because we want to connect places and food. Because gastronomy is a great connector. It touches a lot of aspects in our lives, from education, from health, innovation, culture, and of course, sustainability. So in this initiative, we've been doing a lot of talks. We have invited a lot of speakers to come to share their knowledge and their experience in this. So we have done so far 4 editions with 16 different speakers from different nationalities, different institutions, from the Basque Culinary Center, the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, Harvard, MIT, and in total we had, of course, Michelin star chefs, 14 in total. So let me share some voices that, for example, we had Eneko Acha, and he's a 5-star Michelin star in the restaurant Azurmendi in Bilbao. And he was talking about the importance of creating a network of local farmers to enhance sustainability. Then we had Elena Arzak, and she was sharing this the intergenerational exchange of knowledge and passions in the restaurant and in their family. And then we had Álvaro Garrido and Lara Martín, and they were sharing how the restaurant, La Mina in Bilbao, in La Vieja neighborhood, how it changed the whole community, how they regenerate the community from being like unsafe community to be like very popular after opening the restaurant. Then we have José María Izaga, director of the Basque Culinary Center, and he was sharing how the institute was helping the ecosystem of gastronomy and the students, and how they were training the students to work in that ecosystem. We had Pia Sorensen, a professor at Harvard, and she was talking about synergies between cooking and science. We had Luciana Bianchi from Galapagos Island Foundation, and she was sharing and she was talking about the importance of conservation of the local food, the local people, connecting the farm, the sea, the forest in their restaurant. And we had Fatmata Bint as well, and she empowers women in West Africa by cultivating fonio, it's like a local food, so they can learn more skills and they can be more independent. And then we had Lisa Palmer, a journalist and editor for National Geographic. She was building like a healthy, safe, and secure food systems for kids and for the people. We had Peter Lodge, he was sharing how food also can be like a language and a communication tool. And Catherine Miller from the Culinary Institute of America shared how food as well and gastronomy can be like a bridge between different cultures. With all these ideas or on all these insights, we published a paper, the International Journal of Gastronomy and Food and Science, and we highlighted 5 themes, that is sustainability, cultural identity, community impact, and interdisciplinary innovation. We did the first event of Gastronomy and Beyond at the MIT Media Lab last year. We had Eneko Acha and Jose Maria Izaga together with Kent and Luis, moderated by Adela, and they were sharing the Basque gastronomy ecosystem and how this was impacting also in other, more like globally. And I'm very excited for the second event that is happening this September. All of you are invited if you happen to be in Boston, but if not, it will be also streamed online, so please join us. And if you want to know more, please visit our website. Everything is there. Also, we have a YouTube playlist with all these talks. So if you want to know more about all the ideas on the speakers, please visit us. Eskerrik asko. Thank you, and yeah.
Thank you, Maitane. So we just finished the first part of the event. Thank you to all the speakers. We will now have the cocktail, but it's going to be a special cocktail as we will have the opportunity to watch the demo tours, to be part of the demo tours and to see the installations we have developed and we have shown in some of the presentations downstairs. Each of us has a color, have a color in our lanyard, so we will do small groups depending on the color, and we will ask for the colors and bring you to the demo space to show the cityscopes and other projects. And in the meantime, also some Technion students are going to be in the sofas. You can see next to the cocktail. They will be there waiting for you to talk more about the project, and you can approach them, learn more about the work they are doing, and ask any question you have. So don't miss this opportunity, and see you again here for the workshop after the cocktail. Thank you.